All right, your warm-up is a review of the formulas that you learned last year. So if you look at your formula sheet, this first one is a rectangular prism. So the rectangular prism has a really long formula for surface area, 2 length times width plus 2 length times height plus 2 width times height. When you do this, write out the formula, and on your shape, label the length, width, and height. It does not matter which is which, but you want to just make sure you pick length, width, or height for all of them so that you're, when you plug things into the formula, you're staying consistent. But 2 length times width would be the area of the bottom rectangle and the top rectangle. 2 length times height would be the area of this front rectangle and the area of the back rectangle. And 2 width times height is the area of this right and the area of the left rectangle. So surface area is just adding up all of the faces of the shape. And if you did it correctly, you should get 528 centimeters squared. That's what I did with 5th period. So if it's different, let me know and we can see where we might have gone wrong. Your volume formula for the rectangular prism is the easy one that everyone likes. It's just length times width times height. You multiply your 3 dimensions. So 14 times 6 times 9 is 576. Does anyone need more explanation? 756? Is that not what I said? Okay, I just misread it. 756 should be the answer, as long as we did it right on Monday. All right, on the back, if you have a dotted line or a straight line all the way across the circle that's your diameter, it's labeled on your formula sheet. So your diameter goes all the way across. Your radius just goes from the center to the outer edge. So the diameter is 10, which means the radius is 5. And in all of your formulas, we always use the radius. So pi r squared h is your volume, 3.14 times 5 squared times 7. And your surface area, 2 pi r squared. Remember, pi r squared is the area of a circle, so 2 pi r squared would be both the top and bottom circle. And you do need to know where your formulas are coming from. And then 2 pi r is the circumference, so 2 pi r h would be the circumference, so this part, times the height, which is what wraps around. So the first part of your formula is the circle. The second part of your formula is the rectangle that wraps around that shape. So make sure you know that. You have questions on those formulas? Okay. These next ones are new to some people. Our essential question, how can I use formulas to find the surface area and volume of 3D shapes? On this cone, the 4 got cut off, but the diameter of this cone is 4. So you can fill that back in. All right, so we're going to find the volume. Here's our cone. It has a circular base and a pointy top. Make sure you know the difference between the cone and the pyramid. The pyramid has a square base. The cone has a circular base. Formulas are similar. They have the 1/3. Pi r squared is the area of the base times the height. So they're basically the same formulas, just finding the area is different. So 1/3 pi r squared h, we'll write down our formula. V equals 1/3 pi r squared h. The more times you write your formula, the more times you're going to remember it, so it's good to practice writing it. This line goes all the way across the circle. So 4 is the diameter. What's the radius? 2. And our height is always perpendicular to the base. It starts from the very center of the base and goes straight up. What's the height? Okay. So if you can figure out the correct formula to use and you can identify the parts on the shape, you just plug it in. Volume equals 1 divided by 3 times 3.14 times the radius squared times the height. With order of operations, you should do 2 squared first. So 1/3 times 3.14 times 4 times 6. And the rest of this is just multiplication. So now you can just plug it into your calculator. And in your calculator for 1/3, you do 1 divided by 3. You do not type in 0.333. So 1 divided by 3 times, I'm leaving that in there, 3.14 times 4 times 6 equals 25.12. The formula for surface area, SA equals pi r squared plus pi r L. And this L is the slant height, is the part that goes from the top of the cone to the outside of the circle. The height goes straight up and down, the slant height is slanted. It goes on a diagonal. So that's a new letter that you also see in your pyramid formula. What's our radius? And what's our slant height? Good. So the only things you have to plug in for are the radius and the slant height. Surface area equals 3.14 times the radius, which is 3, squared, plus 3.14 times the radius, which is 3, times the slant height, which is 7.6. In your formula, pi r squared is always the area of the circle. Anytime you see pi r squared, you're finding the area of a circle. And then the other part, this pi r L, is the outside part of the cone. All right, make sure you do 3 squared first. And then when you're working with these formulas, especially like the rectangular prism, because there's so much multiplication, I would do all of the multiplication first, that's your order of operation, and then add it. And make sure you're writing your numbers down, because what's going to happen is you're going to be redoing these problems 5 times because you're losing track of numbers. So 3.14 times 9 is 28.26, plus 3.14 times 3 times 7.6, and you get 71.592. And since I wrote them down, I'm not going to be losing track of these numbers. So now I just add them. 71.592 is already in the calculator, so I can just write plus 28.26. And we get 99.852. And if it ends like this, like it just ends after 3 decimals, I would just write down all the numbers. If pi is involved and it goes on for a while, then maybe round it to the hundredths place or the 1/3. You might not have a nice even number at the end. But if it ends in your calculator, just write down the 3 or 4 numbers that it expands to. Okay. In a pyramid, your volume formula, V equals 1/3 big B times H. And just like pi r squared is the area of the circle, big B is the area of this base. So like up here, this is the area of the base. So your formulas are basically the same. But to find the area of this base, it's a rectangle. What do we do with these two numbers? How do you find the area of a 6 by 8 rectangle? Multiply. 6 times 8 is 48. So the area of this base is 48. That's what we're going to plug in for the big B in the formula. Capital B is different than lowercase b. Lowercase b you see in 2D shapes, and that's just a side length. The capital B is a whole area. Your height, same height as in a cone. It goes from the bottom of the pyramid straight to the top. It's perpendicular to the ground. So what's our height? Okay. 1/3 times the area of the base times the height. 1 divided by 3 times 48 times 7. All right, and again, this got hole punched out, but this was a square pyramid, so this is 7 by 7, if you want to fill that in. All right, if you look at your formula sheet, your surface area formula is SA equals 1/2 your slant height, and P stands for the perimeter of the base, so 1/2 LP plus big B. Again, big B is the area of the base. P is the perimeter of the base, so it goes around all the bottoms. And L is your slant height. So, big B is the area of the base. 1/2 LP kind of looks like your area formula for a triangle. 1/2 base times height. P is all of the bases, add it all up. L is the height. So this is basically 1/2 base times height, but you're doing all the triangles together. So area of the base and this part is all of the triangles together. Your slant height is what? Good. And the perimeter of the base, 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. And the area of the base is an area of a square with a side length of 7. Good. Once we have our numbers, plug them in. 1/2 times the slant height times the perimeter of the base plus the area of the base. All right, you should get 123.2. Flip it over on the back. There is a practice problem for you to try on your own, so do that. When you finish this practice problem, work on these two compound 3D figures. This is a cylinder and a cone. Find the area of each, add them up. This is a rectangular prism with a cylinder taken away. So if you're removing it, you're going to subtract it. So this is a compound figure where you add. This is one where you subtract. Both of them, you're finding the volume of the shapes. Okay, so work on this one. We'll go over it. Start working on these two. I'll explain them. Yes, these problems do take a while. Don't let that be discouraging. can get your pencil. You can use a screw.